We are fast approaching the 5-year anniversary of BKFC 1, which transpired on June the 2nd, 2018 in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and very excited to be talking to an individual who competed on that event and obviously went on to have a very great career in bare-knuckle boxing thereafter. Very happy to be speaking with Johnny Bedford on today's program. How are you doing there, man?
Man, I'm great, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just, honored to be a part of it, so thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, crazy that it's been, that long since then, 5 years kind of flying by. But I guess one of my first questions that I had, what were your, initial thoughts when you got a bare-knuckle boxing offer in mid-2018? It's obviously a very different landscape back then.
Yeah, completely different landscape. It was brand new. It was this new sport that obviously David Feldman worked really hard to make a possibility. But man, if without speaking too much on it, it was just, I was really, really, really fortunate for timing and where I was at in my career and life, that when bare-knuckle boxing became a thing, man, it was almost like a resurgence of a career for I. But I knew that this was something that I could have a ton of success and be really good at. And now that we finally have this platform to do it. So timing was crazy for me, because I was in a point in my life back then in 2018 where I was contemplating if I was going to keep fighting or not. MMA was this grind that I've done for the last 15 years at that point. And, and it was like, I've already been to the UFC. Getting back was going to be really difficult. I knew that. And it was like, man, do I have it in me still? And then bare-knuckle boxing became a thing, man. And it was, again, a resurgence of my career, resurgence of my mental health, I guess. Something new. It was this new, exciting sport that I knew, again, that I had an opportunity to really make a name for myself and then ideally change my life and my family's life financially and in all those ways as well.
Yeah, and I love hearing all that and just what it gave to just really your quality of life in general. And this question isn't meant at all to pry into any of the specifics that you kind of briefly outlined at the beginning of your answer there, but just more speaking in a general sense. What did you know about, the bare-knuckle boxing scene? Because there was a bit of a scene in the UK at the time, obviously. What was your, knowledge of bare-knuckle boxing prior to the summer of 2018 when that first bout kind of came to fruition?
Great question. Yes, I had seen bare-knuckle boxing in England, and actually spoke with those guys a little bit about how the hell do I get a part of this? This is something I knew that, which sounds weird. I think a lot of guys think, I can do bare-knuckle boxing, I can do bare-knuckle. But I knew that this was going to be something that I was going to excel at. And when the opportunity became real here in the United States with the real promotion, it was life-changing for me. And it gave me a platform. It gave me an arena, I guess you want to call it, to showcase my skills. But ultimately, it was like I was coming towards the end of my career, obviously, and it was like I think every fighter wants to leave. You know what I mean? And something usually is a financial number. A lot of these guys, they fight for 20 years and they leave with nothing. They have no degree. They have no backup plan. They have unfortunately, no money in the bank. And it's like, man, it really sucks. And I was nervous about being in that position. I went all in this fight game. Am I going to be able to walk away with something? And man, because of bare-knuckle fighting, I've done exactly that. I've got a bank account that I'm proud of. Now, that wasn't all bare-knuckle. That was a lot of my own good decisions. I didn't change my life when I started making good money again fighting. I put all that money away. I put it into investments. Those investments are now paying me monthly. And I'm in a position in my life for the first time ever that I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to fight. And I would have never, ever, ever been given that opportunity to be able to leave or retire on my own terms in any other way without bare-knuckle fighting. So I'm so thankful for, obviously, David Feldman, for the entire sport as a whole, and then obviously the fan base that gave me an opportunity to truly change my life for the better. And I've got kids that are coming up on college years and stuff, and I'm in a way better position for that now than I ever was before bare-knuckle fighting championships, for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what's most important for sure, being able to, provide for your family, and awesome to hear that you were compensated for obviously a lot of hard work across multiple combat sports. But you kind of touched on a bit of an interesting dynamic there, just with like the, UK scene having a lot of shows back then. But I mean, quite a while prior to, that show happening, like the precedent wasn't really set in America in the sense that it had been over a century since the last bare-knuckle event kind of transpired. So at the time, were you sort of looking at it through that lens as well, almost like reigniting things with bare-knuckle boxing, kind of settling into what a lot of people call the modern era?
I guess I'm a little confused by the question, how you want me to answer it, but I'll try. I think the guys in England that started it, they just had their own little in their own little pocket, but they didn't know how to make it into what David Feldman and BKFC has done. They were never going to give guys like me the paychecks that I've earned elsewhere. Now, obviously, here in the States with BKFC, they were offering us Americans, if you even got an opportunity, you were getting paid peanuts to come over there and fight one of their better guys the first time. And if we never fight, that game matters. So I feel like, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, prior to BKFC, the Americans didn't really have a chance to be elite in this sport, because if you did get an opportunity, you were basically brought in to be an opponent of some sort to some promotion who didn't give a shit about you. Where David Feldman had a bigger picture, you know what I mean? He knew that America was where he needed to be if he wanted to grow this to where it is, but he knew he needed American stars, and he gave people opportunities. I was just a UFC vet that didn't have the greatest career, but he wanted some star power on BKFC 1, and he used that. It was my entry in, having that background and having some sort of a name for myself. But man, what the sport has done because of BKFC, it's the fastest growing sport in the world, and there's all these other promotions now, but none of them would be anywhere where they're at if it wasn't for BKFC and David Feldman and all the hard work of those guys from the grassroots here in the United States.
Yeah, for sure, and apologies if I maybe asked the question in a contrived way. I guess in a more succinct way, I guess I was wondering if it was like a cool thing to be a part of something that hadn't been on American soil in over a century.
That's a great question, and 100%. And I think a big part of me was that BKFC 1, like not knowing where it's going to go, right? We didn't know if there was going to be a BKFC 2. We had no idea, right? And at that point in my career, I remember like just thinking of it as almost like a chapter in my book. And not that I'm going to write a book. Maybe I should one day, right? Write an autobiography of sorts. But there's all these different chapters in my book, and I wanted that chapter. I wanted to have a bare-knuckle boxing chapter just because, I wanted to do something different. I had 50 MMA fights. I had wrestled 1,000 matches. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt already. I needed something new, something that was exciting, something that was fresh. And man, like bare-knuckle was all of that and some. I don't even know how to word it, man. It was new, it was exciting, it was fun, but it was something that I knew that I was going to be really, really, really good at.
Yeah, and I mean, very evident through your career for sure, but just keeping it, I guess, localized to that first card. I'm kind of wondering, like, what was the, I guess, first bare-knuckle camp like? I imagine it was a bit unique from the MMA camp, although I guess I could be wrong in that regard. Like, you very much settled into being one of, like, the more technical, higher fight IQ guys in the sport. But what was that, I guess, initial bare-knuckle camp like? Like, how did all that look?
It was, the initial one was different, right? We didn't know, no one knew. No one knew how to train. Obviously, we're not going to spar bare-knuckle, but you're trying to do things bare-knuckle. You're trying to hit bags. You're trying to hit pads. I did a lot of work with, like, MMA gloves on just so that you could still clinch and still use your fingers. But at the same time, you're not going to bust your hands in training up. So you can still crack things, you can hit pads hard and all those things. No, I mean, I think you kind of, I don't want to get on too many tangents, but I think you hit the nail on the head there when you use, like, MMA IQ. And I think that's what kind of set me apart from the beginning, is that I knew I had the toughness, I'll be honest. Like, I thought that these guys aren't going to be the same as but I knew what really was going to set me apart was my IQ. I knew that let these guys blow their wad. Let these guys throw these big overhand rights and bust their hands up. Let them, you know what I mean? Let them make mistakes. Part of, outside of BKFC 1, I get a bad rap sometimes for being the bad guy of bare-knuckle because people think I'm arrogant or whatever else. But I don't think people understand the psychology or the nuances of fighting per se. You know what I mean? When I'm standing over someone that I just knocked down, looking down on him, it looks cocky. I get that. But we're in fucking war out there, man. And this is a physical war, but it's also a mental war. If I knock you on your ass and I'm standing over you, looking down on you, that does something to you mentally. You're questioning yourself if you want to get up or not. And, again, not getting on too many tangents, but I think my IQ, my experience, my 20 years in this damn game, my 20 years of coaching MMA and fighting has really set me apart because I think my IQ definitely, I knew I didn't need to hit them hard. You're not going to throw these big Chuck Liddell overhand rights. You just got to touch these guys and watch them fall apart. And for whatever reason, I knew what to do from the beginning, man, and I stuck with my game plan, and I obviously had some pretty decent success in bare knuckle with that.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, talking about the mentality localized to the event, I guess this is a bit of a two-part question, but I'm curious, what were the, feelings / general mentality pulling up to the arena on fight day? And I guess as an extension of that, what was the vibe in general from what you could infer backstage with the pre-fight and the warm-ups? So I guess the question is, how did you yourself feel coming to the arena on fight day, and what was the general sense of what the overall vibe was, for lack of a better way to phrase it?
No, great question. The vibe was different. It was different than anything I'd ever been before. Obviously, I've been in the back of millions of fights, whether I'm fighting myself or coaching or anything else. But bare knuckle was different because it was almost like the olden days of these guys that have never done this before. Back in 2003 when I started fighting MMA and shit, you'd show up and there'd be guys that literally have never even been in a gym before and fighting. And it wasn't to that where we were all these novices, but nobody really knew what to expect. Nobody knew. Obviously, you can't go back. No one's sparring bare knuckle. No one's, everyone's that first event, I'm sorry, I feel like everyone that was part of it did a great job matching that first card because it was everything they needed it to be, I think, because everyone's ego was there. Everyone was excited about this new sport. Everyone thought that, this sport's going to be for me. This is going to be my chance. And the ones that obviously that figured it out, knew how to use their IQ and figure this game out are the ones that have now had the most success. You look at bare knuckle 1, look at all the guys that fought there. It was myself, Reggie Barnett, Joey Beltran. So, guys that have been multiple-time world champions now all started there, and I think a big part of it was that we got our experience, we got our feet wet first, and we knew how to run with this shit.
Yeah, and awesome you said that. Definitely segued into something I was eventually going to mention, just speaking to the, high-level pedigree of the card, guys like Arnold Adams and DJ Linderman on the card, and also the aforementioned champions that you outlined there. Bobby Gunn obviously was a big name going into that card, and it could really keep going on. So definitely a deep event, and looked deeper in hindsight as time went on too.
Yes, it did actually. I forgot that. Yeah, Arnold Adams was there, Beltran. So yeah, the division they did a great job of making them matchups on BKFC 1. And good. I'm glad they did because I think it's without those names per se, you know what I mean? We don't know how the card would have went. You had guys that got big wins that night that wanted more. Reggie Burnett and I went to David Feldman at the after party of Bare Knuckle 1, and we said 135 is next. And he looked at us like we were crazy. What do you mean? When I said, well, you started an 8-man heavyweight tournament. You got 2 135-pounders right here. We're next. And sure enough, Bare Knuckle 3 started at 180 or 135 8-man tournament. That Reggie Barnett and I were on opposite ends of that bracket.
I love hearing that. Just the fact that both of you were kind of advocating for that in combat sports, very interesting, because in a competitive framework kind of sense, obviously you guys had a great pair of fights, but it always seemed like you guys had a certain level of, I guess, individual camaraderie, but also the desire to uplift the division overall. So I love that anecdote there, man.
Yeah, I mean, me and Reggie on paper may be enemies or opponents, I guess you want to call it. I was fighting twice, but I'm a Reggie Barnett fan. I root for him against everybody except for myself, obviously.
Yeah.
And he's the champ right now. I'm happy for him. It's his time. It's his turn. Again, I don't want to speak too much on all that, but yeah, I mean, bare knuckle won. Super honored. Obviously, the guys that were all part of it, 4 or 5 of us have had a lot of success because of that one moment. And I think I'm just one of those many that are super thankful that we were even given that opportunity 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And focusing on your particular fight, I guess like the first question that I'm kind of curious about, I mean, you were talking before about having that awareness of, okay, I don't need to necessarily like drop these Chuck Liddell overhand rights to have, you know, some effective connectivity here. But what was the general feeling of landing that like first bare knuckle punch, at least in like a professional kind of framework?
No, great question. I think that's where you find out the guys who've done this and the guys who have not done this, because you see right away, honestly, man, like when I fought my first ever bare knuckle fight, it was against the Bellator vet Nick Mamalis. Had similar experience as I did in the MMA world. But couple things, you know, I knew that I was kind of cut from a different cloth, and I don't want to, you know, beat on my own chest here, but I knew that we lived a different life. I knew that I grew up a little rougher than him. I grew up a little tougher than him. But again, when that fight started and I touched him, and as soon as I started hitting him, you could tell right away that one of us likes this and one of us does not. And that's always like when we sign new people or you hear of these big names coming, I just personally, I don't get super excited until I see them once, because I want to see how they react to that. You know what I mean? And this is not a knock at all on him, and I don't think he quit per se. A lot of people are talking shit about him, but you see it firsthand the last week or a couple of weeks ago with Luke Rockhold. He said he'll never do this shit again without gloves on. It's not for him, and I think it's not for a majority of the people. It's not that it's any more dangerous. It's just different, and it feels different, and people just, without that little 4-ounce glove on, it feels different, and people don't like it. Once you start seeing your own blood, people start falling apart.
Yeah, I mean, great assessment overall, and like you said, not necessarily saying it about Rockhold, like in particular, but I understand your general, like, overarching point. Like, it's a sport for some people, and for some people it's not. But, I mean, definitely a comprehensive performance in the sense of, you know, securing that second round stoppage. So I would think in, like, an emotional sense, there would be that euphoria and, you know, excitement from everything post-fight. But, like, physically, how were you feeling in the following days after that initial bare-knuckle bout?
My initial one went really well. So I don't think I got hit all that much. So I think that I left on just cloud 9, if I'm being honest, like with the highest of highs. You know, I remember going backstage after I won that fight, and looking at my coach at the time like, holy shit, man, this shit is it's real. Like, it's a real sport now. And I knew right away, like, after I got my hand raised and how well I did that first fight, I had already been telling David Feldman. David Feldman picked me up at the airport 2 days prior to this fight to get me. We shuttled to the hotel together. It was just random how that happened. But I told him the first day I officially met him is that I'm going to be the face of this promotion. And he probably looked at me like I was crazy, like everybody told him. You know what I mean? Nobody knew shit at this point. But I knew something was different. And after that first win, man, I went back and I can remember, like, I want more of this. Like, this is something I'm going to be really good at. I want more of this. And that was a big part of, like I said, going backwards, is Reggie and I teaming up of sorts at the after party. Like, hey, dude, me and you we can be enemies, but we can also be buddies here. And we can make this better for both of our lives. And we made that mutual agreement, like, we're going to make them put this 135-pound tournament on. And it made sense then for them. They saw 2 guys that had stellar performances. So it made sense. Let's go fill a bracket. Let's go find some other big name guys, and let's make it happen. And yeah, I kind of went on tangents there, but I'm just, how I felt after the first one, I felt, man, great. One of the greatest feelings in the world. You know, winning a fight is always one of the greatest feelings in the world, right? You work your ass off for this one moment to get your hand raised. So when that happens, it's the greatest. One of the greatest feelings any human being will ever feel. That's the fight game, though, because it's the highest highs and the lowest of locker room with after a loss, or after a friend's loss, or after a student. There's nothing. It's the highest highs and the lowest lows. And after that fight, for sure, man, I was on the highest of highs, and I knew that I wanted to, run with this. It's like, hey, this is a real possibility now. So I have some control of this, but ultimately I need the promotion to do well as well, right? I need this promotion to keep giving me the opportunity to do this. So, I think I was smart as well. I didn't go start asking for crazy, stupid money out the gate, because I knew that it's a business. You know what I mean? They need to make money to keep doing this as well. I do understand that. I guess it goes back to MMA IQ. I understand that fighters can't fight without somebody writing paychecks. So we need them to be successful too. And yeah, man, I think I just keep going on tangents here, but just super, super thankful for the opportunity at that moment, and just the highest of highs, because you're on this new sport on pay-per-view. It's a shutout of sorts, you know what I mean? I dusted that guy. I got a second round TKO. I think I knocked him down 3 times before the fight was stopped. So it wasn't a long fight. I didn't take a bunch of damage. Just high of highs, man, if I'm being honest.
No, I love hearing that. And like I was kind of saying earlier, definitely want to be mindful of your time. But I guess the one kind of, final question, or at least one of the last couple, is just, I guess, speaking to the growth of the sport, because you were there for a lot of it, just being on that huge BKFC 6 card for the time, becoming that inaugural bantamweight champion. I mean, you were on the first Knuckle Mania and, became a 2-time champion as well. So can you speak to, I guess, the growth in the bare knuckle scene nowadays, 5 years later, as compared to, June 2018?
June 2018, I had to go to Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is like a population of like 80,000 people. It was the only state that let them happen. It was amazing how it worked out. I wouldn't change it anyways. But yeah, you fast forward to BKFC 6, and you've got Paulie Malignaggi and Artem Lobov as your main event on a worldwide pay-per-view, the number one trending thing on Twitter for the day. And yeah, I'm a co-main event fighting for a world title. And probably one of the greatest moments in my life was getting that world title strapped around my waist. And I mean, one of the first things I said when they gave me that microphone was, Daddy did it. Like, I got to talk to my kids, and my kids, for me, it was all the shit, all the sacrifice, all the 20 years of all the struggling financially, being this fighter, being for these moments like this. It all came worth it to me. And I looked at my kids and through the camera, and I said, Daddy did it. World champion. And that was honestly probably the biggest moment in my life as a professional fighter, was just being able to look in that camera and say, Daddy did it. Daddy said he was going to, this is how we were going to make a living. And it all really boiled down to that moment, that night, where I showed up, I performed, and I got my hand raised. And, we didn't know what was going to happen in Bare Knuckle 1. We had no idea there would even be a Bare Knuckle 6. And fast forward 5 events, were the number one trending thing on Twitter, with 100,000 people buying a pay-per-view to watch this stuff. The sport has grown so fast, so rapidly, and I think it's still in the infancy. I think we're still growing. They're signing bigger name guys every day. They've got more money for this because obviously they're making more money. We're still in the infancy, and I think, I'll keep going back to these other quote-unquote famous guys. Eddie Alvarez said it best. He said, this sport is the best sport in the world. It's just getting started. I mean, any guy that comes over, like the Eddie Alvarez's and the Chad Mendez's and Lou Grockles, they're going to find out this shit is real really quick, and some of them are going to run with it. And I think Eddie Alvarez is one of those guys we're going to see in there 3, 4, 5 more times for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that'd be a great note to end things off on, like, just in the sense of, I don't want to encroach into your class time. I want to be respectful of the fact that you're, going to be teaching. But is there any maybe final parting thought you might want to add as we're kind of wrapping up here, though, Johnny?
No, man. Just thank you to people like you in the media. Thank you to obviously Bare Knuckle. I'm just super thankful to be able to do things like this, because without Bare Knuckle 1, I would just be coaching MMA right now. I would, you know what I mean? And I live a great life. I'm very happy. I'm blessed with what I do. I love my day-to-day life, being around martial artists and making people the best they can be. But because of Bare Knuckle 1 5 years ago in June here, it's given me this platform. It's given me my voice still matters. My opinions still matter. And I'm just honored, if I'm being honest, that I get to go down as one of the pioneers in the sport. It's something that I'll remember forever. I've got the original bare knuckle belt that's hanging up inside my gym. It'll never, ever, ever be taken down. It's one of the greatest accomplishments of my life. That's something I'm super proud of. And again, just I can't say it enough, but just how thankful I am for the opportunity, and just I'm so happy, so proud to be a pioneer and to see where it's going and how it's just continuously growing at the rate it is. It's just the beginning, and I'm just thankful to still be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure, and very thankful to have you as part of this project and everything just leading into that 5-year anniversary of BKFC 1. Definitely, had to get your insights because you've had such a great career since, and we're a big fixture on that kickoff card. But I do appreciate all the time and great insights, man, and just, yeah, you have a good rest of your day, Johnny.
Hey, dude. I lost you. My Bluetooth kicked on. Are you still there, brother?
Oh, sorry, man. I was just thanking you for the time and great insights, and just to have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Dude, I feel terrible. I lost you for 30 seconds, but yes, no. Thank you very much. I always make time for you guys. I apologize for kind of dropping the ball and being 10 minutes late, but yeah, dude. Anytime, reach out to me. I'm happy to do it, and happy to be a pioneer and to share my experience with the first ever. It's a story that I hope to tell many more times in the next, 50 years of life, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I love hearing that, man. But until then, hopefully the, class goes well, and just have a good rest of your day too, man.
All right, brother. Thank you very much. Have a great day. You as well.